Agency in Action, Free Will and the Architecture of Consequence. Exploring the Interplay of Causality, Karma and Moral Responsibility by Azlan Adnan, M.A. Synopsis. What does it really mean to be free? Are human beings the authors of their own lives, or are our choices shaped by forces beyond our control? In this thought-provoking philosophical essay, Azlan Adnan examines one of humanity's oldest and most profound questions through a fresh, universal lens that transcends religion, culture, and ideology. Distinguishing between human agency and free will, the book argues that people possess genuine capacity to make meaningful choices, but always within the constraints of natural laws, biological realities, social conditions, and the actions of others. Reinterpreting the ancient concept of karma as action and consequence rather than reward and punishment, it presents a sophisticated model of causality that aligns with both philosophical reasoning and systems thinking. Dharma is likewise explored not as a religious doctrine, but as the lawful order that underpins both nature and civilization. Drawing on Eastern and Western philosophy, including Aristotle, the Stoics, compatibilism, and existentialism, the book demonstrates how agency, responsibility, and moral order can coexist within a causally structured universe. Through compelling real-world examples, it challenges fatalism while rejecting the illusion of absolute freedom, offering instead a balanced philosophy of responsibility, resilience, and ethical living. Accessible, intellectually rigorous, and deeply relevant to modern life, this work invites readers to rethink how every choice shapes not only their own future, but the interconnected world we all inhabit. Agency in Action, Free Will and the Architecture of Consequence. Exploring the Interplay of Causality, Karma and Moral Responsibility by Azlan Adnan, M.A. Sunday, 5 July 2026. Introduction. Few philosophical questions have generated as much debate as whether human beings genuinely possess free will. Every civilization has confronted the problem in one form or another. Are our choices truly our own, or are they merely the inevitable consequences of prior causes? Do individuals actively shape their destinies, or are they simply passengers carried along by forces beyond their control? These questions have occupied philosophers, theologians, scientists, jurists, and ordinary people for millennia because they lie at the heart of morality, justice, responsibility, and the human condition. This chapter approaches these questions from a deliberately secular and philosophical perspective. Although concepts originating from various religious and philosophical traditions will be examined, they will be treated as intellectual frameworks rather than articles of faith. The objective is neither to defend nor to refute any religion, but to explore universal principles that transcend culture, geography, and historical period. One of the greatest obstacles to understanding free will is the tendency to reduce the discussion to a false dichotomy. Many people assume that either everything is predetermined or everything is entirely free. Reality appears considerably more complex. Human existence unfolds within an intricate network of biological inheritance, physical laws, environmental conditions, social institutions, historical circumstances, and interactions with countless other individuals. Within this web of influences, people nevertheless appear capable of making meaningful choices. The challenge is to understand how these two realities coexist. For this reason, this chapter distinguishes between human agency and free will, terms that are frequently treated as though they were interchangeable. They are not. Human agency refers to the capacity to act intentionally. It is the ability to make decisions, evaluate alternatives, pursue goals, and influence events through deliberate action. Agency is observable in everyday life. A person decides whether to tell the truth or lie, whether to help a stranger or ignore them, whether to exercise or remain sedentary, whether to study or procrastinate. These decisions are expressions of agency. Free will addresses a different question. It asks whether those decisions originate from genuine freedom, or whether every choice is itself the inevitable consequence of prior causes. It is therefore a metaphysical question concerning the ultimate source of human decision-making. A person may clearly possess agency while still operating within constraints imposed by genetics, upbringing, education, economic circumstances, psychological disposition, cultural expectations, and the laws of nature. Agency therefore exists within conditions, rather than in isolation from them. Recognizing this distinction transforms the discussion. The question is no longer whether people are absolutely free or absolutely determined. Instead, the more meaningful question becomes, how much freedom exists within the constraints that reality imposes? This distinction also has practical consequences. When agency is underestimated, individuals may drift towards fatalism. They begin to believe that their decisions are ultimately meaningless because every outcome has already been determined by fate, destiny, divine intervention, or impersonal forces beyond human control. Such beliefs often diminish personal responsibility and discourage constructive action. Conversely, exaggerating free will can be equally misleading. It ignores the undeniable influence of biology, social conditions, accidents, historical context, and the countless variables over which no individual exercises control. Human beings neither write the entire script of their lives nor merely recite lines written by someone else. They participate in an unfolding reality whose future is shaped by innumerable interacting causes. Throughout this chapter, another conceptual shift will also be adopted. Rather than describing karma in simplistic moral terms as good karma or bad karma, it is more philosophically precise to understand karma as action and consequence. This interpretation removes unnecessary moral judgment and instead highlights a universal principle of causality. Every action alters conditions. Those altered conditions influence subsequent events. Consequences themselves become causes, producing further consequences in an ongoing chain of interaction. This understanding resonates far beyond Indian philosophy. Scientific reasoning similarly assumes that events do not arise spontaneously without antecedent conditions. Every observable phenomenon emerges from preceding causes operating within lawful systems. Although ethical causation differs fundamentally from physical causation, both share an underlying commitment to intelligibility rather than randomness. Viewed in this way, human life is best understood not as an isolated sequence of individual choices, but as an immense network of interacting actions and consequences. Every decision contributes, however modestly, to the evolving fabric of reality. Human agency does not operate outside this network. It operates within it, continually shaping and being shaped by it. The remainder of this chapter will examine how different philosophical traditions have attempted to understand this relationship between freedom, causality, responsibility, and moral order. Despite their differences, many converge upon a remarkable insight. Human beings are neither omnipotent architects of their destinies nor helpless victims of fate. They are participants in a lawful universe whose future is influenced, in part, by the choices they make. Human agency, the power to choose within constraints. Every moment of conscious life involves decision-making. Some decisions are trivial, such as choosing what to eat for breakfast, or which route to take to work. Others carry profound consequences, including selecting a profession, entering a marriage, voting in an election, or deciding whether to act honestly or deceptively. Collectively, these decisions constitute the exercise of human agency. Agency is often misunderstood as unlimited freedom. It is nothing of the sort. Every decision is made within a landscape of constraints. A person cannot simply will away the force of gravity, reverse the passage of time, or choose the circumstances of birth. Human beings inherit a genetic constitution, are born into particular societies, acquire languages they did not invent, and mature within economic, political, cultural, and environmental conditions over which they initially have no control. Yet these constraints do not eliminate agency. Rather, they define the arena within which agency operates. A useful analogy is a game of chess. Every player is bound by the same rules. The movement of each piece is strictly limited. Nevertheless, within those limitations exists an almost limitless range of possible strategies. The rules constrain the game, but they do not determine every move. Likewise, natural laws, biological realities, and social structures establish the boundaries of human action, but they do not dictate every decision. This distinction has occupied philosophers for centuries. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle argued that moral responsibility depends upon voluntary action. Praise and blame become meaningful only if individuals possess sufficient control over their conduct. Virtue, in his view, develops through repeated choices that gradually shape character. Character is therefore not merely inherited, it is cultivated through habitual action. Centuries later, the Stoic philosophers offered a different perspective. They recognized that many external events lie beyond human control, yet insisted that individuals retain authority over their judgments, attitudes, and responses. Although the external world may constrain circumstances, the internal exercise of reason remains an expression of agency. This insight continues to influence contemporary psychology, particularly approaches that distinguish between events themselves and our interpretations of those events. During the Enlightenment, philosophers intensified the debate. David Hume argued that freedom should not be understood as the absence of causation. Rather, freedom consists in acting according to one's own motives and desires, even if those motives themselves have causes. This position later became known as compatibilism, the view that causality and meaningful freedom are not mutually exclusive. By contrast, Immanuel Kant maintained that morality presupposes genuine freedom. If every human action were entirely predetermined, moral responsibility would become incoherent. Concepts such as duty, obligation, justice, and accountability would lose their philosophical foundation. Modern neuroscience has added another layer to the discussion. Studies have shown that certain neural processes precede conscious awareness of making a decision. Some researchers interpret these findings as evidence that conscious choice is largely an illusion. Others caution that these experiments concern highly simplified laboratory tasks and cannot be extrapolated to complex moral reasoning, long-term planning, or reflective decision-making. The philosophical debate therefore remains very much alive. Perhaps the most productive conclusion is that agency exists on a spectrum rather than as an absolute condition. Consider a child raised in poverty. The child does not choose the family, neighborhood, educational opportunities, or economic circumstances into which they are born. These factors undeniably shape future possibilities. Yet two individuals growing up under nearly identical conditions may make very different decisions, producing markedly different lives. Circumstances influence choices without wholly determining them. This understanding avoids two common errors. The first is fatalism, the belief that individual effort is ultimately meaningless because events are fixed in advance. Fatalism weakens responsibility by encouraging passivity. If every outcome is inevitable, then striving becomes irrational. The second error is radical voluntarism, the belief that individuals alone determine every aspect of their lives. This ignores structural realities such as illness, discrimination, economic inequality, natural disasters, and sheer chance. It places unrealistic moral burdens upon individuals while overlooking the powerful influence of external conditions. A more balanced philosophy acknowledges both reality and responsibility. Human beings neither control everything nor control nothing. They inherit circumstances, yet they also contribute to shaping what follows. Agency, therefore, is best understood as the capacity to make meaningful choices within an existing framework of constraints. Those choices matter because they alter subsequent conditions. Every decision changes probabilities, creates new opportunities, closes others, and influences the decisions of countless other people. This understanding prepares us to examine one of philosophy's oldest and most misunderstood concepts, karma. Properly understood, karma is not a supernatural system of cosmic rewards and punishments. It is a sophisticated way of thinking about how actions generate consequences within an interconnected universe. Examined in this light, it becomes a powerful philosophical model for understanding causality, responsibility, and the cumulative effects of human agency. Action and consequence. Reinterpreting karma beyond reward and punishment. Few philosophical concepts have been more misunderstood than karma. In popular culture, it is frequently reduced to a simplistic formula: good deeds produce rewards while bad deeds invite punishment. Such interpretations may be rhetorically appealing, but they fail to capture the depth and sophistication of the original idea. For the purposes of this chapter, karma will be understood in its most universal sense: action and consequence. This definition deliberately avoids moral labels. It does not assume that every consequence is a reward or a punishment, nor does it imply that every event carries an immediate moral judgment. Instead, it describes a universal principle of causality. Every action alters reality. Those alterations become part of the conditions from which future events emerge. In this respect, karma may be viewed less as a supernatural mechanism than as a philosophical model of causation. Human actions are not isolated occurrences. They propagate through families, communities, institutions, ecosystems, and history itself. A single decision may influence hundreds or even millions of subsequent decisions, often in ways that remain invisible to the person who initiated the first action. This understanding bears a striking resemblance to systems thinking. Modern science increasingly recognizes that complex systems consist of countless interacting variables whose combined effects cannot always be predicted from any single component. Human societies function in much the same way. Every individual simultaneously influences others while being influenced by them. To illustrate this complexity, consider an ordinary road traffic accident. A pedestrian decides to cross a busy road. At first glance, the event appears simple. Yet, beneath its apparent simplicity, lies an intricate network of interacting causes. The pedestrian exercises agency by deciding where and when to cross. There is a designated zebra crossing a short distance away, but convenience, impatience, distraction, overconfidence, or simple habit leads the pedestrian to cross elsewhere. That decision immediately alters the probability of what may happen next. At precisely the same time, a motorist approaches. The driver is also exercising agency. Perhaps the driver is traveling slightly above the speed limit. Perhaps fatigue has reduced concentration. Perhaps an argument earlier that morning has impaired judgment. Perhaps the driver is preoccupied with work, glances momentarily at a mobile telephone, or simply fails to anticipate a pedestrian emerging unexpectedly into the roadway. Neither individual intends harm. Nevertheless, the trajectories of two independent streams of decision-making now intersect. The result is a collision. Many people instinctively ask whether such an event was meant to happen. Others ask whether it was karma. Still others attribute it to fate, destiny, coincidence, or divine will. Such answers often oversimplify an extraordinarily complex reality. The accident is not adequately explained by examining only the pedestrian's decisions. Nor can it be explained solely by examining the driver's behavior. Both exercised agency. Both acted within particular circumstances. Their decisions interacted with physical laws governing motion, braking distance, human reaction time, visibility, road design, weather conditions, vehicle maintenance, and countless other variables. The event emerged not from a single cause but from the convergence of many causes. This perspective fundamentally changes how responsibility is understood. The pedestrian's decision contributed to the conditions. The driver's decisions also contributed. Road engineers who designed the junction may have contributed. Municipal authorities responsible for road maintenance may have contributed. Vehicle manufacturers contributed by designing braking systems with particular performance characteristics. Previous decisions made weeks, months, or even years earlier may also have influenced what occurred on that particular afternoon. None of these causes alone necessarily produced the accident. Together, however, they created the conditions under which the accident became possible. This illustrates an important philosophical principle. Human actions rarely operate in isolation. Every decision enters an already existing web of relationships, causes, and consequences. Individual agency, therefore, functions not independently but interactively. Each person's choices become part of the environment within which others make their own choices. This is precisely why reducing karma to individual reward and punishment is philosophically inadequate. Consequences frequently arise from the interaction of multiple agents whose independent decisions converge in unexpected ways. What one person experiences today may partly reflect decisions made by countless others, just as today's actions may influence people yet unborn. The concept of karma, understood as action and consequence, therefore directs attention away from mystical speculation and towards causal analysis. It encourages us to ask not who deserves this, but rather, what sequence of actions and conditions made this outcome possible. The difference is profound. The first question searches for blame. The second searches for understanding. It is this shift from moral simplification to causal complexity that transforms karma from a religious doctrine into a powerful philosophical framework for analyzing human affairs. Yet another question naturally follows. If countless actions continually interact to shape reality, does the universe possess any underlying order within which these interactions occur? Or are actions and consequences merely unfolding within a morally neutral cosmos governed only by impersonal laws? To explore that question, we must turn to another ancient concept that is equally misunderstood: Dharma. Dharma, natural law, and the architecture of order. Having examined karma as action and consequence, we may now ask a deeper question. If actions generate consequences, within what kind of universe do those consequences unfold? This question leads us to the concept of Dharma. Like karma, Dharma has often been confined to a religious context. Yet viewed philosophically, it can be understood in a broader and more universal sense. Dharma need not be interpreted as a religious obligation or divine command. Rather, it may be understood as the underlying order that enables the universe to function coherently. Every civilization has recognized, in one form or another, that reality exhibits order rather than chaos. The planets move according to predictable gravitational laws. Chemical reactions follow consistent principles. Living organisms develop according to biological processes. Human societies likewise depend upon certain forms of order. Trust enables commerce. Justice sustains civil society. Cooperation permits civilization to flourish. Without some degree of order, neither nature nor society could function for very long. Seen from this perspective, Dharma is not primarily about ritual or religion. It is about alignment with the conditions that allow individuals, societies, and ecosystems to flourish. Western philosophy contains remarkably similar ideas. The ancient Stoics believed that the universe is governed by a rational order, often referred to as the logos. Human wisdom consists not in resisting reality but in understanding it and living in accordance with it. Similarly, the tradition of natural law, developed most influentially by Thomas Aquinas, argues that moral principles are not merely arbitrary social conventions. Rather, they reflect aspects of the natural order discoverable through reason. Although Aquinas framed this within Christian theology, the underlying philosophical idea can be appreciated independently of religious belief. Reality possesses an intelligible structure, and human flourishing depends upon understanding and respecting it. A comparable insight appears in the philosophy of Aristotle. His concept of telos refers to the characteristic purpose or end towards which a thing naturally develops. A seed tends towards becoming a tree. The human capacity for reason tends towards wisdom and ethical excellence. Flourishing arises when something fulfills its proper nature rather than acting contrary to it. These traditions differ in language, history, and metaphysical assumptions. Yet they converge upon a common philosophical intuition. There exists an underlying order within which human life unfolds. This understanding also clarifies the relationship between divine action and human agency. Many people assume that if God exists, every event must be individually directed by divine intervention. Such a view raises difficult questions. Why does God permit disease? Why are there earthquakes, wars, accidents, and injustice? Why are innocent people harmed? An alternative perspective avoids these difficulties without diminishing the significance of the divine. One may conceive of God as establishing the fundamental architecture of reality rather than micromanaging every individual event. The laws of physics, chemistry, biology, and human cognition provide the stable framework within which conscious beings exercise agency. Gravity operates consistently. Human reaction times remain subject to biological limits. Vehicles require measurable distances to stop. These regularities make meaningful action possible. Within that lawful framework, individuals make choices. A driver decides whether to obey the speed limit. A pedestrian decides where to cross the road. An engineer decides how safely to design a bridge. A legislator decides whether to strengthen or weaken public safety regulations. These are acts of agency, not acts imposed upon individuals by divine compulsion. Consequently, many events arise not because they have been individually ordained, but because countless human decisions interact within an orderly universe governed by consistent natural laws. This perspective preserves both responsibility and intelligibility. It avoids portraying human beings as puppets, while also avoiding the opposite error of imagining that individuals operate independently of reality's constraints. Importantly, this framework also explains why extraordinary or miraculous intervention, if it occurs at all, would necessarily be exceptional rather than routine. A universe in which natural laws were constantly suspended would become unpredictable and unintelligible. Scientific inquiry would be impossible. Moral responsibility would likewise become confused, because outcomes would no longer reliably follow from actions. Whether one interprets such rare interventions as miracles, extraordinary coincidences, or events beyond present scientific understanding lies beyond the scope of this chapter. The central philosophical point is simpler. Meaningful agency presupposes a stable and ordered universe. Dharma, understood in this universal sense, therefore provides the context within which karma operates. Karma describes how actions generate consequences. Dharma describes the ordered reality within which those consequences unfold. Agency describes the human capacity to act within that reality. Together, these three concepts form a coherent philosophical framework. They require no commitment to any particular religion. They simply offer different ways of describing the relationship between human choice, causal consequence, and the lawful structure of the universe. The remaining question is perhaps the most challenging of all. If human beings possess genuine agency within an ordered universe, how much freedom do they actually have? Modern philosophy has produced several competing answers, ranging from hard determinism to existentialism and compatibilism. It is to these perspectives that we now turn. I think the chapter is developing into a substantial philosophical essay rather than merely an introduction. Your central reinterpretation of karma as action and consequence, coupled with Dharma as the lawful architecture within which actions unfold, gives the work a distinctive philosophical voice that is not tied to any single religious tradition. It is an original organizing framework rather than a restatement of classical doctrines. Freedom within necessity, determinism, compatibilism, and existentialism. The question of free will has generated one of philosophy's longest and most enduring debates. While philosophers have disagreed profoundly about the nature of freedom, they have generally organized themselves around three broad positions: determinism, compatibilism, and libertarian free will. A fourth perspective, existentialism, approaches the problem from a different direction by emphasizing responsibility over metaphysical certainty. Each offers valuable insights. None, however, provides a complete explanation of human experience. Determinism: every event has a cause. Determinism holds that every event has preceding causes. If every relevant variable could be known with perfect accuracy, every future event would, in principle, be predictable. The idea is intellectually attractive because it reflects the success of science. The planets follow predictable orbits. Chemical reactions occur according to consistent principles. Biological processes obey the laws of genetics and physiology. Every observable event appears to arise from prior conditions. Applied to human behavior, determinism suggests that every decision is likewise the product of preceding causes. A person's genes, childhood experiences, education, personality, cultural environment, emotional state, and present circumstances collectively determine every choice. Conscious decision-making may simply be the final stage of a process already set in motion long before the individual becomes aware of it. From this perspective, free will is an illusion. Although this conclusion appears logically coherent, it presents significant philosophical difficulties. If every action is completely predetermined, on what basis can anyone be praised or blamed? Can criminals be held morally responsible? Can acts of courage genuinely deserve admiration? Does justice become little more than the management of predictable behavior? Most importantly, if no one could ever have acted differently, does moral responsibility retain any meaningful significance? These questions explain why determinism, although influential, has never achieved universal acceptance. Compatibilism, freedom within causality. Compatibilism attempts to resolve this apparent contradiction. Rather than defining freedom as the absence of causation, compatibilists argue that freedom consists in acting according to one's own reasons, intentions, and values, even though those reasons themselves have causes. This view reflects ordinary human experience remarkably well. Suppose an individual donates money to charity because compassion motivates the decision. The compassionate disposition has undoubtedly been shaped by upbringing, education, and previous experiences. Nevertheless, the donation still expresses the person's own character and deliberate intention. The action remains meaningful precisely because it flows from the individual, rather than from external coercion. Compatibilism therefore distinguishes between being caused and being compelled. A decision may have causes without being forced. Human freedom in this account lies not in escaping causality but in acting through one's own rational capacities. This understanding closely resembles the distinction developed earlier between free will and human agency. Agency concerns the ability to deliberate and act. Compatibilism explains how such agency can exist even within a causally ordered universe. Existentialism, freedom as responsibility. Existentialist philosophers approach the problem from a different angle. Rather than asking whether human beings possess metaphysical freedom, they focused upon the undeniable fact that people continually make choices. Jean-Paul Sartre argued that human beings are condemned to be free. His famous expression appears paradoxical. He meant that even refusing to choose constitutes a choice. Individuals cannot escape responsibility simply by claiming that circumstances left them no alternative. Although external conditions unquestionably exist, people remain responsible for how they respond to those conditions. This emphasis upon responsibility complements the understanding of agency developed throughout this chapter. People do not choose every circumstance. They do choose how to respond to many of them. Two individuals may suffer identical setbacks. One becomes resentful and destructive. The other becomes resilient and compassionate. The circumstances are similar. The responses differ. Agency manifests itself precisely in this space between circumstance and response. Beyond the false choice, these philosophical traditions are often presented as mutually exclusive. Yet each captures an important dimension of reality. Determinism correctly reminds us that actions emerge from preceding causes. Compatibilism demonstrates that causality need not eliminate meaningful choice. Existentialism reminds us that responsibility remains unavoidable because life continually presents decisions requiring action. Taken together, they suggest that human freedom is neither absolute nor illusory. Freedom is conditional. It exists within constraints. This conclusion also illuminates the earlier discussion of the road accident. Neither the pedestrian nor the driver acted in a vacuum. Each brought unique histories, habits, beliefs, emotional states, and immediate circumstances to the encounter. Each exercised agency. Each influenced the outcome. Yet neither exercised complete control over every variable. Reality emerged from the interaction of independent choices operating within lawful conditions. The event was therefore neither entirely predetermined nor entirely unconstrained. It was the product of multiple streams of causation intersecting at a particular moment in space and time. This perspective reveals why simplistic explanations are so often misleading. To attribute every event solely to fate ignores human agency. To attribute every event solely to personal choice ignores circumstance. To attribute every event solely to divine intervention ignores the lawful regularities through which reality ordinarily operates. A richer philosophy recognizes that human life unfolds through the continual interaction of agency, causality, and order. This balanced understanding carries profound ethical implications. If our choices genuinely influence the future, even within limits, then every decision matters. Individual actions become the means through which tomorrow's conditions are created. It is this ethical dimension that ultimately transforms the discussion from an abstract debate about free will into a practical philosophy of responsible living. This sets up the final section naturally, where the chapter can move from philosophical analysis to practical application by exploring how recognizing agency changes personal ethics, public policy, education, justice, leadership, and civilization itself, before ending with a strong concluding synthesis. The ethics of agency, why human choice matters. Philosophical discussions of free will often remain confined to lecture halls and academic journals. Yet the significance of the debate extends far beyond intellectual curiosity. How we understand human agency influences the way we educate children, administer justice, design institutions, govern societies, and conduct our own lives. Ideas have consequences. If individuals believe that every event is fixed by fate, destiny, or some immutable cosmic script, personal initiative gradually loses its significance. Why strive if every outcome has already been determined? Why cultivate discipline if success or failure is inevitable? Why seek justice if injustice itself has been preordained? Such beliefs can foster fatalism. Fatalism is not merely a philosophical position. It is a psychological disposition that encourages passivity. It weakens resilience because effort appears futile. It diminishes responsibility because individuals begin to regard themselves as spectators rather than participants in their own lives. History offers numerous examples of societies that have struggled against such attitudes. Progress in science, medicine, engineering, and political reform has depended upon individuals believing that thoughtful action can improve existing conditions. Every medical breakthrough, technological innovation, and social reform reflects confidence that human agency matters. The opposite extreme is equally problematic. Modern culture sometimes promotes an exaggerated individualism in which every success is attributed entirely to personal effort and every failure entirely to personal weakness. Such a view overlooks structural realities including poverty, discrimination, illness, disability, war, economic instability, and simple misfortune. Neither extreme adequately reflects reality. Human beings inherit circumstances they do not choose. Yet within those circumstances they possess varying degrees of agency. Wisdom lies in distinguishing between what can and cannot be changed. This insight unites many philosophical traditions despite their differences. The Stoics urged attention to what lies within one's control. Existentialists emphasized responsibility despite uncertainty. Compatibilists argued that meaningful choice survives within causality. Even modern psychology increasingly recognizes that individuals flourish when they perceive themselves as capable of influencing their own futures. Agency, therefore, has profound ethical significance. Every decision contributes to shaping subsequent conditions. A teacher who inspires curiosity influences generations of students. An engineer who refuses to compromise safety standards may save thousands of lives. A journalist who values truth strengthens democratic institutions. A parent who demonstrates patience and integrity shapes the character of future citizens. These actions may appear ordinary. Collectively, they transform societies. Conversely, seemingly insignificant acts of negligence, dishonesty, or indifference also accumulate. Corruption rarely begins with monumental crimes. It often begins with small compromises that gradually become normalized. Environmental degradation similarly emerges through countless individual and institutional decisions, whose cumulative effects become visible only decades later. Action and consequence operate continuously. This understanding returns us to the example of the road traffic accident. The collision was not simply an isolated event. It was the visible outcome of numerous preceding decisions. Equally important, it became the beginning of new chains of consequence. Families were affected. Medical professionals became involved. Insurance companies processed claims. Courts may have examined liability. Legislators might even revise road safety regulations in response to similar incidents. Every consequence became the cause of further consequences. The chain continued. This illustrates one of the chapter's central arguments. Human agency is never exercised in isolation. Every decision enters an interconnected network of relationships extending far beyond the individual decision-maker. The consequences of an action often exceed both intention and imagination. Recognizing this interconnectedness encourages humility. No individual controls every outcome. Yet neither is any individual's contribution insignificant. Our influence may be limited. It is rarely negligible. This balanced understanding also reshapes the concept of responsibility. Responsibility is not the unrealistic expectation of controlling everything. Nor is it the excuse that external circumstances determine everything. Responsibility consists in exercising one's agency as wisely, honestly, and conscientiously as possible within the circumstances that actually exist. That is both a philosophical and practical ideal. Ultimately, the debate concerning free will is not merely about metaphysics. It concerns how human beings should live. Whether complete metaphysical freedom exists may remain permanently disputed. What cannot reasonably be disputed is that our decisions influence ourselves, influence others, and influence the future. That fact alone gives agency profound moral significance. The architecture of consequence is continuously under construction. Every thought translated into action becomes another stone within that structure. Every decision alters the world, however slightly. Every consequence becomes part of the conditions from which future choices will arise. Perhaps this is the most important insight of all. Human beings neither stand outside the causal order nor remain imprisoned by it. We inhabit it. We participate in it. And through the continual exercise of agency, we help to shape what comes next.
First Audiobook Edition Sunday, 5 July 2026. The first EPUB edition is available for free download from The author has placed this work in the public domain. It may be freely imported, exported, shared, distributed, edited, modified, or reformatted without explicit consent from the author. As a visually impaired person, the author asserts his rights under the Marrakesh Treaty to facilitate access to published works for persons who are blind, visually impaired, or otherwise print disabled. 2013, wipo.int.
Early bird registration for my September 5th event is valid until July 31st for a minimum donation of 150 ringgit. Made before July 31st, you can attend my September 5th event. All proceeds for all your donations will be used not just for your meal for the day, but also for my various eye treatments and sponsoring some persons with disability to attend the event. From July onwards, it will be 150 ringgit until the end of July. Then in August, it will go up to 200 ringgit. Thank you.
How to attend Azlan Adnan's Meet the Author Luncheon at the Hungry Tapir, 135 Petaling Street, Kuala Lumpur, short walking distance from the Pasar Seni MRT LRT station, from 12:30 hours, Saturday, 5th September 2026.
Step 1. Download all my 30+ books on nutrition for free from Z Library using this URL. However, there is a limit of 10 downloads a day from Z Library. The workaround is to download them, and 2,250 plus others, from my Optimal Health Community Telegram broadcast channel at EPUB Electronic Publishing. All my free ebooks are published in .EPUB electronic publishing format. If you are still living in the dark ages and only know .PDF, portable document format, and never heard of .EPUB, don't worry. You are about to have a mind-blowing experiential learning journey. If you use an Apple device, .EPUB files open in the Books app. If you are an Android user, use Universal Book Reader or a similar app. If you need further instructions on how to read .EPUB documents, just ask your favorite AI app to teach you. If you have never used an AI app before, start with Grok, Gemini, or ChatGPT. Then move on to DeepSeek, Claude, or Kling later.
Step 2. I have put all my books in the public domain, and you may share them freely. In fact, I strongly implore you to do so. Viralize them, make sure they reach every person who needs the knowledge contained in them. In Malaysia, the most recent data from the National Health and Morbidity Survey 2023 shows that 21.8% of adults are obese and 32.6% are overweight. This means the total combined rate is 54.4% of adults. Scary huge percentages of Malaysians are diabetic or suffer from other non-communicable diseases, NCDs. To be specific, in Malaysia, about 15.5% of adults have chronic kidney disease, CKD, up from 9.1% in 2011. Around 21.4% of adults aged 30 and above are at high risk of cardiovascular disease, CVD. Among older adults, about 8.5% have dementia, equating to roughly 260,000 people as of 2022. A nation is only as strong as its human capital. How strong can a nation be if more than half its population is fat, sick, and nearly dead? Of what good can you be to your family if you are fat, sick, and nearly dead? You owe it to yourself to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be.
Step 3. Read the books, follow whatever advice that makes sense to you. If something doesn't make sense to you, or causes cognitive dissonance, you can ask me clarifying questions on the 5th of September. Also, be prepared to report on the 5th of September what improvements in your health you have noticed. So far, one person has seen her total cholesterol level drop from always above 5 to 4.6. Another has resolved a chronic constipation issue. I have written 2 books on human stool classification and stool analysis. Another person who wakes up every morning with a white layer of mucus on her tongue for more than half her life now wakes up with a clear tongue. Step 4. Make the minimum donation by the required dates. The longer you prevaricate, the higher the minimum donation gets. Minimum donation per pax: 100 ringgit for donations received by June 30th, 150 ringgit for donations received by July 31st, 200 ringgit for donations received by August 31st, 500 ringgit for donations received by the 5th of September, and for walk-ins. Places are limited. However, I do not wish to deprive anyone. If enough people register, we can take over the whole restaurant, so make your donations early to reserve your place. Purpose: your donations will go towards sponsoring persons with disability, PWD, to attend the event, and also towards my various ongoing eye treatments. Sponsorship: if you run a business and wish to promote your business, you can sponsor door gifts, gift vouchers, or even cash.
Vegivore Food Therapy proudly presents Ask Me Anything on Nutrition.
Your attention please. Vegivore Food Therapy proudly organizes a unique, transformative event on Saturday, 5 September 2026, starting at 12:30 hours at the Hungry Tapir, 135 Jalan Petaling Street, 50000, Kuala Lumpur. For a minimum donation of 100 ringgit, attendees will secure a seat at this rare opportunity. Azlan Adnan, M.A., polymath and autodidact, will guide the session. A writer and researcher in nutrition science, Azlan has authored dozens of books on plant-based bioactives, antioxidants, and the chemistry of whole foods. In this session, he will lead a dynamic Ask Me Anything on Nutrition session. All 30 of his nutrition books are in the public domain and are downloadable at the link below. Attendees must read these books in advance and come prepared with their questions. This is a singular chance to engage with one of today's leading independent nutrition thinkers. Don't miss it. A healthy, whole food, plant-based lunch with the menu curated by Azlan Adnan will be served. No need to write your name in the reference of the bank transfer, as it will automatically be displayed, but include your phone number in case we need to contact you for any last-minute changes.
We will also celebrate Azlan's 68th birthday.
Some of you have been wondering why a YouTube channel devoted to green political philosophy and ideology would address health issues. The stark facts are these. Data from the National Health and Morbidity Survey in Malaysia 2023 shows that 54.4% of adults are either overweight or obese, with 32.6% classified as overweight and 21.8% as obese. Abdominal obesity, per wrote Bo Roy, was also reported at 54.5%. Compared to 2011, the combined prevalence of overweight and obesity has increased from 44.5% to 54.4%. According to the same survey, 15.6% of adults in Malaysia have been diagnosed with diabetes, kencing manis. Additionally, about 21.4% of Malaysian adults aged 30 and above have a high 10-year calculated risk of developing cardiovascular disease, CVD, sakit jantung. In Malaysia, precise prevalence data for diagnosed CVD is somewhat limited. Data from 2010 to 2021 indicated that 16.6% of all registered deaths were due to CVD. A 2015 survey found that 14.1% of working-age adults had diabetes, 24.5% had hypertension, and 45.9% had high cholesterol. The World Heart Federation also noted in 2022 that around 11% of deaths in Malaysia are linked to CVD. In 2011, the prevalence of chronic kidney disease, CKD, sakit buah pinggang, was 9.07%. A nationwide study in Malaysia in 2018 estimated that 15.48% of adults, over 5 million people, have CKD. It really is alarming. These numbers are striking, especially when you consider how rapidly they have grown over just a decade. It is a massive public health challenge. In light of these statistics, the implications for nation building and capacity building are stark. What value does a nation have if more than half its population are fat, sick, and nearly dead?
Are you fat, sick, and nearly dead? Well, according to the data from the latest survey, 54.8% of Malaysians are. In fact, the statistics are quite scary. So if you or any of your loved ones are in this high-risk category, don't despair. I have good news for you. I've written more than 30 books on nutrition, and you can download them all for free. The only limitation is you can only download 10 books per day from Z Library. However, you can download almost 2,500 books from my Telegram broadcast channel. I'll give you the link shortly. And if you're overwhelmed by 30 books, in fact, these 30 books, I've designed them so that they could cover the undergraduate syllabus of a nutrition or dietetics course, or the nutritional needs for a medical student. Anyway, if you think you're overwhelmed, you don't know where to start with this book. And then as you progress, you can, go deeper, take a deep dive into the other books. And if you want to meet me to discuss what you've read in the books, you have a chance in September to do so. However, there are 5 places already been taken up, and there are limited seats, so the sooner you register, the sooner you'll reserve a place for yourself. Attendance is by donation, so details are in the following video.
It is for this reason that I've written more than 30 books on health and nutrition and put them all in the public domain. Why nutrition? Because nutrition is the single biggest factor and lowest hanging fruit we can address to improve our health. 80% of our health is influenced by nutrition, which is our biggest exposure to the environment. The others are genetics, at 5%. But even with genetics, the emerging science of epigenetics shows how we can switch off bad genes and switch on good ones with nutrition. The remaining 15% relate to other lifestyle factors, including sleep, meditation, relationships, air quality, and so forth.
Important note on event registration fees. Super Early Bird. Donation received by the 30th of June 2026. Minimum donation of 100 ringgits. Early Bird. Donation received between the 1st and the 31st of July 2026. Minimum donation of 150 ringgits. Normal registration. Donation received between the 1st and the 31st of August 2026. Minimum donation of 200 ringgits. Late registration. Donation received between 1st to 5th September 2026. Minimum donation of 500 ringgits. All proceeds after deducting third-party costs will go towards Azlan Adnan's various ongoing eye treatments to hopefully reverse or at least arrest his macular degeneration, cataracts, photophobia, mydriasis, dry eyes, and etc. This is mission critical as, if his vision fails, he'll no longer be able to produce, edit, or upload videos. Your voluntary contributions and donations are a critical success factor. As such, your generosity, empathy, compassion and kindness are well and truly appreciated. We thank you in advance for your invaluable help and assistance in making this event a resounding success.
About the author. Azlan Adnan, M.A., is a writer and independent researcher whose work focuses on nutrition science, food systems, and the biological foundations of human health. His writing examines how natural foods contain complex compounds that interact with human physiology in ways that may support long-term well-being. He has a particular interest in plant-based bioactive compounds such as polyphenols, carotenoids, flavonoids, and other phytochemicals found in fruits, vegetables, herbs, spices, algae, and fungi. His research explores how these compounds function in plants and how they may influence human nutrition when consumed as part of a balanced diet. Azlan approaches nutrition from a multidisciplinary perspective, drawing on biochemistry, plant biology, and public health nutrition. His work aims to translate complex scientific concepts into clear explanations so that readers can better understand the nutritional value of everyday foods. He is the author of several books examining natural sources of antioxidants and other dietary compounds. Author of the Antioxidant series, Antioxidants in Herbs and Spices, Antioxidants in Algae, Microalgae, and Fungi, Antioxidants in Fruits and Vegetables, Antioxidants in Nuts and Seeds, Antioxidants in Berries. Author of the Nutrient series, Macronutrients, Volume 1, Carbohydrates, Macronutrients, Volume 2, Lipids, Macronutrients, Volume 3, Proteins, Micronutrients, Vitamins, Trace Elements, and Minerals, Anti-nutrients, the hidden blockers in your food, Phytonutrients, the quiet power of plants, Water, the forgotten fourth, a macronutrient you can't ignore, other books on health and nutrition, Tuber's Briefing Paper, 2nd edition, Aslan's 5-Powder Manifesto, Eating the Greek Way, How Cultural Habits Support Health Without Trying, Ideology on a Plate, How Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Turned U.S. Dietary Guidelines into a Scientific Farce, Maslow in 2026, A Practical Guide to Actual Needs, Not Scrollable Wishes. These works form part of an ongoing series exploring the chemistry, biological roles, and nutritional significance of bioactive compounds in plant foods. Through his writing, Azlan advocates a practical food-first approach to nutrition. His work emphasizes whole foods, dietary diversity, and balanced eating patterns, rather than reliance on isolated nutrients or supplements. He holds a Master of Arts in International Business and Management from the University of Westminster in London, and writes extensively on nutrition science, health, and food-based approaches to long-term well-being. Azlan Adnan, the quiet revolutionary of real food writing. Azlan Adnan, M.A., is a Malaysian polymath who spent decades turning food into philosophy. Raw, unfiltered, no hype. You won't find him pushing superfoods or miracle diets. He dissects what actually works. Whole plants, spices, microbes, and the quiet chemistry that keeps bodies humming. With over 30 books, self-published, shared freely on Z-Library, Facebook groups, Telegram channels, Aslan's output is prolific. Part manifesto, part manual. Early works like Spring Has Sprung, a psychological thriller, and travelogues On the Road to the East Coast reveal his roots in journalism, advertising, and storytelling. But nutrition became his mission. Educated with a Master of Arts in International Business and Management from the University of Westminster, London, he taught at the School of Management, Royal Holloway, London, while pursuing doctoral research in business strategy and environmental management, specializing in the international timber trade. That academic backbone, rigor, systems thinking, sustainability, bleeds into his food writing. No fluff, just evidence. The core series, the Macronutrients Trilogy, Volume 1 on carbohydrates, glucose, fiber, metabolism, Volume 2 on lipids, fats, omega-3s, inflammation, Volume 3 on proteins, repair, enzymes, muscle. Then micronutrients, water, and anti-nutrients, the plant world's double-edged sword. Anti-nutrients are naturally occurring compounds in whole foods, phytates, oxalates, lectins, goitrogens, that can bind minerals, block enzymes, or mess with absorption. They evolved as plant defenses, but in us, they steal iron from spinach, calcium from kale, or spike gut irritation from raw beans. Variety wins. 30 plants a week, not monodiets. Raw's romantic, but cooked smarter. Add spice blends like Aslan's 5-powder manifesto, turmeric mixes for real anti-inflammation, and you've got a library that says, eat wide, not weird. Why release it all into the public domain? Because knowledge isn't currency. It's oxygen. Aslan watched corporations gatekeep health, paywalls on papers, patented supplements, proprietary blends that hide what works. He refuses. His books aren't for sale. They're for spread. No DRM, no ads, no ego. Just files anyone can download, print, share. He says it plain. If one person in a kampong swaps white rice for brown or steams kailan instead of boiling it, that's the win, not royalties. He's no gatekeeper. His Facebook, Azlan Green Party, Instagram, and YouTube drop bite-sized truths. Traffic light WFPB guides, eye health talks on looting, vegan journeys. He credits tradition, curries, forest mushrooms, seaweed from tides, and lives it. Unpeeled carrots, home ferments, no moralizing. 30-plus titles aren't about volume. They're depth. Carbs to phytonutrients, water to gut bugs. Aslan doesn't sell health. He hands you the tools. Read him and your plate changes. Not because you're broken, because you're built for better. A heartfelt light. To every soul whose hand did give, you've helped me dream, helped me live. In darkest hours your light came through, with hearts so kind, so pure, so true. Your gifts, like stars in deepest night, have steered me gently toward the light. Each coin, each word, each silent prayer, a thread of hope so rich, so rare. My eyes once dimmed now seek the skies, and slowly clearer visions rise. Because of you, I dare to see the world again. Its grace, its plea. Your compassion's flame will not just stay with me alone. It lights the way for others wandering through despair to feel the warmth of selfless care. You've shown what love in action means, in quiet ways through giving scenes. You've built a bridge from soul to soul and made the broken feel more whole. So let this thanks rise like a song, a melody both soft and strong. May your example gently call more hearts to rise to give. To fall into the joy of lifting pain, of planting hope where none remains. Your kindness walks beside me still, a light, a love, a living will.
support. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to show your support.